Chairman. Mr. Whitaker, why did Rod Rosenstein send a memo to Bob Mueller on August 2nd, 2017 concerning the scope of the special counsel investigation?
Congressman, thank you for that question, and I know this is of a great interest to you, and I hope we can have a discussion about this today. The special counsel regulations require a scoping of the special counsel's investigation that identifies the subject and the targets of the investigation. So I am certain that it would have identified the scope of the investigation pursuant to the special counsel's.
Well, my question is not what, I'll get to that. My question is why, because it was 2.5 months after the special counsel was formed. So let's go back to the beginning document, which you told the chairman earlier you're completely briefed on the special counsel's investigation. I want to go, it's just a one-page document. Order number 3915-2017 says this, Mr. Whitaker, the special counsel is authorized to conduct the investigation, including any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation. That's pretty broad. Do you agree?
Yeah, and in my experience, it's consistent with other appointments of special counsels.
That's fine. I think it's maybe too broad, but it's as broad as you can get. One-page order, go do your investigation, and anything that arises out of it, you can investigate as well. But then 2.5 months later, we get this 3-page memo from Rod Rosenstein, Acting Attorney General, to Robert Mueller, Special Counsel. Title says, Scope of the Investigation, Definition of Authority. This is what confuses me, because in this memo that only Mr. Mueller, and my guess is you and Mr. Rosenstein and a few people at the Justice Department have seen, most of it's blacked out, in this memo it says this, the following allegations were within the scope of the investigation at the time of your appointment and are within the scope of the order. Well, if that's true, why do you have to say it? If you could do it all along, why do you have to put it in a memo?
Congressman Jordan, first of all, I was, because of General Sessions' recusal from the special counsel's investigation, I was also recused from that investigation. And so I was not.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking, you said you were fully briefed. The chairman asked you that.
You're asking me why at the time Rod Rosenstein.
I'm asking you why 2.5 months after the broadest order you can have, why did Rod Rosenstein say, hey, you could do this all along, but now I'm putting it in a memo? And I'll tell you what really troubles me, Mr. Whitaker, is right after that statement, the following allegations were within the scope of the investigation at the time of your appointment and are within the scope of the order. Right after that, you know what? You know what happens? Everything's redacted. Look at this. The whole darn thing. So if you could do it all along, and you have to send a memo to him 2.5 months later, and then you redact everything after it. You know what's under the redactions, Mr. Whitaker?
I do, sir.
You do. Are there names under the redactions, Mr. Whitaker?
In my experience with investigations generally, you would not have a public document identify targets or subject matter of an investigation, especially if someone is not ultimately charged with it.
Well, let me frame it this way. Did Rod Rosenstein give the special counsel the authority to investigate specific Americans?
Congressman, Mr. Rosenstein, acting as the Attorney General because of Mr. Sessions' recusal, gave authorization and jurisdiction to the special counsel. And so, yes, under the special counsel regulations, that's the whole purpose of the special counsel.
So I want to make, you said yes. So there are specific names 2.5 months into the investigation that Rod Rosenstein gave the special counsel specific American names to go investigate.
Congressman, as you know,
if that's the case, then it's. Well, I hope you. I want to know yes or no.
As you know, this is the subject of an ongoing investigation, and I spoke to you generally about investigation.
But I'm asking you a specific. Or let me ask it this way: can you give us assurances that there are not specific names under this 70% redacted memo that that Rod Rosenstein sent to the special counsel?
Congressman Jordan, I know this is.
And you know why I'm asking this, Mr. Attorney General. Because in this country, we don't investigate people, we investigate crimes. And if there are specific American citizens' names in this redacted, and I asked Mr. Rosenstein to see this, and he got all mad and huffy with me in his office and wouldn't show it to me. But I think the American people, if this alters, changes, and names specific Americans, the scope of the investigation of the special counsel, don't you think it's appropriate for the American citizens to know the full parameters of an investigation into the guy they made President of the United States?
Congressman, let me be very specific about this, because you are right. We investigate crimes, not individuals.
And that's why I'm asking the question. I would like a yes or no answer. Are there names mentioned under this redacted portion of this memo?
On that, as I mentioned before, that memo props up a confidential investigation, as is every Department of Justice.
Simple question, Mr. Whitaker. Are there names, specific American names mentioned in this redacted, 70% redacted memo that happens 2.5 months after the special counsel gets his order to start his investigation, where he was given the broadest latitude you can possibly have?
Time of the gentleman has expired. The witness may answer the question.
I would just refer the Congressman to the general practice of the Department of Justice, that we investigate crimes and not individuals.
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.